Well, welcome everybody. Once again, I'm Carolyn from the center, but actually I'm from the center of my house today. And I'm so happy to introduce to you someone I consider a friend. This is Stephanie White. And it's really interesting to me how life intersects. Stephanie's mother is a member of the center. And she said, "Oh, I know this person who's really got something really fun to show you all. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Yes." But I guess she did not know that Stephanie, my oldest son had gone to Stephanie for some neurofeedback training when he was younger, which was very helpful. So that was Stephanie's been a practitioner for 30 years here in the area, and she is now also added to her repertoire of things that she can offer to people. So she's a certified master of emotional freedom technique, and she's an advanced thought field therapy practitioner, as well as, like I said, a neurofeedback practitioner and just an all-around wonderful person. So you're in for a treat today, and I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie now.
Thank you, Carolyn. And hello to everybody and welcome. And thank you so much for being here with me this afternoon so that I can share this technique that I am absolutely in love with. And I wanted to also, comment on this day that we're having, and I hope everybody's really comfy and cozy in their homes and warm. So my intention today is to talk with you about this. Oh, Carolyn, can you start the PowerPoint?
Absolutely. Hold, please. All right.
Yeah, so today I'm going to be talking with you about the emotional freedom technique. And since it is such a mouthful, I will be referring to it as either EFT or it's also known as tapping. And as we go through the slides, it'll make more sense. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with tapping or with EFT, but this is a technique that is non-invasive, it's gentle, and there are no negative side effects to it. Okay. It's something that you can do independently to help your body know how to move into self-regulation. So if you're feeling anxious, that would be dysregulated, and then moving into feeling relaxed and calm would be regulated and much more comfortable. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead through this PowerPoint and share the knowledge that I have with you about EFT. And then I'll do a little demo, and then I would love for us to do a group tapping together. And then we'll open it up at the end for a Q&A. And very excited to share this with you. So Carolyn, if you could just move it to the second slide. Okay. So as Carolyn said when she introduced me, my name is Stephanie White, and what I'm going to go over with you is my training as a Master EFT Practitioner. I personally discovered tapping years ago during a time when I was living with chronic stress, and I was really looking for relief. And when I was introduced to tapping, I achieved the relief that I was seeking. And so it's my nature to then take kind of like a full dive as a seeker and lover of learning to understand this technique so that I could bring it into my practice and support the clients that I see. And at this point in my life, I was already very familiar with our nervous system and with neuroscience and rewiring the brain. But I was really amazed at how rapid and efficient and dramatic this technique is. And at the time I already had a daily meditation and mindfulness practice. And this really was an addition to all that I already had learned. And one of the things that the EFT is able to do is to collapse self-limiting beliefs that have a tendency to live in our unconscious or our subconscious and can actually interfere with quality in our life, because we are living off of an old program when these beliefs were taught to us, and they might not be serving us in our life. And the tapping is something that can release that and can also help to dissolve emotions that get trapped and stored in the body. And we'll go over that as I go through the slides. I wanted to give you a little bit of history as far as how tapping was discovered. And Dr. Roger Callahan was the founder of tapping therapy. Most people know tapping to be called the emotional freedom technique. Roger's therapy was called thought field therapy. And then the developer of the emotional freedom technique is Gary Craig. And Gary studied extensively and intensively under Roger Callahan. And his background was an engineer, and he had that kind of brain where he liked to take difficult things and put them into a system and simplify them. And that's what he wanted to do with the tapping. And he wanted it to be able to reach more people, and so be easier to use. And then he's the one that created the emotional freedom technique, which was based on Dr. Callahan's research and study. Okay, so Carolyn, if you'll go to the next slide, that would be great.
Sorry, going there.
Okay. All right, so you're hearing this term tapping therapy or tapping or EFT, and you might be wondering, what that is. Sometimes this is referred to as acupressure or acupuncture for the emotions. So when we're doing tapping or EFT, we are addressing our emotions and wanting to release anything that is impacting us negatively in regards to our emotions. And in this image that you see on this slide, the image is showing 9 of the tapping points that are used. And when we do the tapping, it is considered to be, in a somatic therapy realm, because we are actually physically tapping on these points on the body. And it's kind of like a Morse code to communicate to the autonomic nervous system how to unlock what it is that has been stuck. And it does work. And it works on shifting feelings that feel like a distressed feeling, including pain. So if you've never seen it before, it might look strange seeing it for the first time. And it, might just look like a weird thing to do. But what we do with the tapping is we start out with tuning in and rating the distress that we're feeling. And we use a scale of 0 to 10. 10 would be the most uncomfortable level of distress, and 0 would mean, not in a state of distress. And then we tap on these pressure points. And we start with a pressure point that's on the side of the hand. And we say a sentence that keeps us engaged so that we are focused on the distress, which might be counterintuitive to think about focusing on the distress, but this is a really critical part of the success of the tapping. And so I'll go ahead and do a little demonstration, but we would start at the side of the hand, and we would focus on something like, even though I'm feeling a good bit of worry right now, I'm open to the possibility that I can calm this worry. And then we go to these other points that you're seeing on the screen, and we might truncate that sentence and just say worry. And again, keeping that in our thought field, worry. And we go around these different tapping points, repeating either a phrase or a word. And then that's what one round looks like. And so you can see it takes very little time. I just wanted to mention that at Harvard University, they've done a 10-year research trial on stimulating these pressure points. And what they've learned in these 10 years is that when we tap on these points, these very specific points, a signal is sent back to the stress center in the brain, which is called the amygdala, and it actually informs the amygdala that it's safe for it to calm. Okay, so then Carolyn, if you would take us to the next slide. Okay. So like I mentioned, EFT does release unresolved emotional and physical pain that has been unnaturally stored in our body. And it has been shown to calm our nervous system and release these trapped negative emotions that have been stored in the viscera or the body. And I'm going to guess that each of you has had an experience where you've been upset, where you might have even used the expression, and I could feel it viscerally in my body. So that's because it is stored in the body. And there's a researcher by the name of Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, who I'm just going to call Bessel, who wrote a book called The Body Keeps the Score. And he showed through brain scans how distress or trauma do get encoded in the viscera, in the body. And so that the body is actually keeping score, keeps that information. And what he determined was that interventions to resolve this need to be directed at the level of the body. And the tapping actually does that. All right, Carolyn, if you'll go ahead to the next slide. Okay, so here, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see the small picture that's on here, but in describing what tapping is used for, tapping is in the field of energy psychology. We are working with the system in our body of energy. And when we experience emotions that don't feel good, they do negatively impact our nervous system. And this is actually a form of stress. The question is it chronic? Is it a habit? Is it a pattern? So much so that we might not even be consciously aware. And this is a picture of an emotional scale. And it's very natural for us to have this entire, different emotions on this entire range of emotions. But you can see in the bottom part of the scale where you can see the blue, those emotions typically don't feel good. And then the ones that are in the light green on the top are emotions that typically do feel good. And emotions have been described as energy in motion. We, we kind of maybe need to question, why do we have a name for them? Why do they create a feeling inside of us? And it's pretty remarkable that the feelings are different. We could feel bliss, we could feel joy, we could feel, something so beautiful and tremendous, or we could feel something like despair and, powerlessness and devastation, guilt, worry. And we get a completely different feeling in our body with these different emotions. Okay, Carolyn, if you'll go ahead to the next one. So this is just a visual to talk about energy. So we're really very aware of energy when we're not talking about our body. For instance, a battery. We understand that a battery has a negative and a positive charge, and that it works when we line it up, correctly, and that a battery is something that can be charged or depleted. So these are polar opposite charges, this negative and this positive. And we have an energy system just like the battery does. Okay, Carolyn, if you'll go to the next slide. And we just talked about how our emotions create feelings. Our emotions get put into these two categories, positive or negative, just like the battery. And the feel-good column, you can see all those emotions that I'm sure you've experienced in your life that do feel good. Those actually hold a positive charge energetically. And then you see a whole list of emotions that are in the not feel good column. Those actually have been determined to hold a negative charge. So I think we need to go to the next slide, Carolyn, sorry. Let's go back to the energy one. I just wanted to say one more. And thanks for your patience, everyone. I wasn't able to get this on my computer, so Carolyn's helping me from her computer, which takes away my ability to look through the slides. But the feel-good emotions that have a positive charge actually provide us with energy. And the not feel-good feelings actually deplete us, just like the battery. So these emotions are very critical to the quality of our life and our outlook and our experience. And so I really wanted to highlight that. Okay, if you would, Carolyn, go ahead to the next slide.
You bet.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so here I just wanted to briefly introduce a little bit of research. In the past 10 years, there have been a number of clinical trials with EFT or tapping. And the clinical trials are showing some remarkable results. And you can see these percentages going up or down with these different things that are being measured. One of them is cortisol, which is our stress hormone, which gets released when we have an emotion that tells the amygdala that we're not safe, that there is danger, fear, worry, doubt. And the tapping has shown to reduce the cortisol by 37%. And this trial was actually an 8-week trial. This was in a very short number of tapping sessions. It also showed how the immune system markers dramatically improved to 113%, showing us the connection between the nervous system, our emotions, and the health of our immune system. So again, when we have the negatively charged emotions, they negatively influence our immune system. It's kind of like a seesaw effect with the two arms of the immune system. that one arm of that immune system is directly impacted by stress. So when stress goes up, the immune system goes down. And when the stress goes down, the immune system strengthens. So there's a direct correlation, which really points to, we are much healthier when we are less stressed. There is a direct impact. There's a percentage of pain going down 57%, anxiety 40%, depression 35%. And, you can see these other percentages without me going through everything. So the trials have pointed to how we can actually change our DNA expression. We can radically reduce the stress hormone cortisol, and we can even change our brain's pathways through tapping. So it's a very powerful technique, which is the reason that I'm so in love with it. Okay, Carolyn, if you would move to the next slide. Thanks. All right. There are 3 types of stress. There's emotional, physical, and chemical stress. And I just put this little cartoon up. Today I will live in the moment, in that Zen kind of yoga pose, unless the moment is unpleasant, in which case I will eat a cookie. So just to add a little bit of levity to stress, what I see in my practice with my clients is that there often is this gap between how we're feeling and how we'd like to feel. And we don't typically know how to get from one to the other. And yet we can see how beneficial it is to be able to do that. Tapping is a tool that allows us to self-regulate and return our system to balance, or all of our systems into balance, and become relaxed, which allows the systems to restore, and we become more resilient. We have reserves that we can draw on if we have a little bit of stress. So sometimes I think about stress and our system kind of like a coiled wire that when it's really, really taut and tight and we touch it, it has the reaction of being very, very reactive. Or if we had like a tall glass of water, and that meant we were all the way filled up with overwhelm or stress, and we put one more drop of water, the water overflows outside of the water. But if we only had half of that glass filled and we dropped a little bit more in, we wouldn't go into overwhelm because we would have reserve. We would have, the ability to be more resilient and not move into overwhelm. Okay, Carolyn, if you would move to the next slide. Thank you. All right, choosing how you feel. From my perspective and my years of experience and my very personal experience, choosing how we feel isn't something that I used to think we could do. I used to feel that I was very powerless to my thoughts and my emotions, and felt kind of like I was a victim to my life circumstances, what was happening to me that felt like it was happening to me from the outside. So when we're feeling feelings like fear or worry or overwhelm from, for instance, all this uncertainty that we've all been living in, this causes one of the types of stress, which is emotional stress. Okay, Carolyn, if you would, please go ahead to the next. Okay, so again, using the image of the battery with the positive and the negative charge, we're looking at what the effects or the symptoms are of stress. So we have over to the left side of this visual, the manifestations. So we might know that we have a stomach ache, or, oh my gosh, I've got so much tension in my neck, or my chest just feels really tight and constricted, or my back is bothering me. It's so tense and I'm having pain, or my jaw might be really tense, or I might have trouble sleeping. I might have trouble falling asleep. I might have trouble staying asleep, which is very, very challenging issue to deal with. Or I might feel like I have this really busy mind and I just can't quiet it. I don't even know what that would be like to quiet my mind. Or I might feel the impact or the manifestation as a drain, like I don't have much energy. I just feel really wiped out, depleted. Or I might be feeling confusion or brain fog or not as clear thinking as I would like to feel. Or my motivation might be really low. Or my mood might be not very regulated. Or I might feel agitated and irritable at things that probably don't match the agitation and irritability if I was feeling good. And it's most likely I would have a negative outlook. I would be looking through a lens where my perception was that things were probably more negative than they actually are. Or my blood pressure might be a manifestation of an effect or a symptom of stress. Aches and pains, and a weakened immune system, like we talked about. So these three emotions that I'm highlighting, fear, worry, and overwhelm, actually create stress and deplete our battery. And so they move us becomes this cycle of stress creating more stress. And so again, learning how to break that cycle, interrupt that habit or that pattern is very empowering. And it is a way to self-regulate and interrupt. And again, EFT is something that is able to do that. So Carolyn, thank you. If you would move to the next slide, please. All right, so help is on the way. We do know that EFT radically shifts us into calm. And not only do I have the research, but I have years and years of experience working individually with clients and seeing what seems like a miracle one after the other because of this thing called radical, right? When something does something so dramatically and so radically and so efficiently, it seems pretty miraculous. And what's happening is we're shifting into the rest, the heal and digest part of the nervous system, which is called the parasympathetic nervous system. And it is actually where we heal. And it's where, those autonomic functions are happening as they're organically designed to happen, like digest. And so our body is capable of doing this. It depends on the emotions and whether we're feeling good or not feeling good, and whether we're giving ourselves energy or depleting our energy, depends on which part of the nervous system we are actually inhabiting, which then does affect our health and our well-being and the quality of our experience, and also affects, what we bring to others. Okay, so if you would go ahead into the next one. All right, so if we're looking, so let's look at the benefits of the emotional freedom technique. The first one that, we just talked about was that it calms the nervous system. And again, it's scientifically proven to send a signal to that fear center, the amygdala, which reduces our stress. And when we're in this calm part of our nervous system, we experience a powerful and effortless shift in the quality of our life experience, because we're able to access those feel-good feelings. We're able to feel that feeling of being able to let go and relax. We're able to breathe, with ease and from our belly, and not, this upper chest, raising the shoulders, and we're not really giving the blood in our body the oxygen that we would be giving it if we're breathing from our belly, and we're oxygenating our blood, which really enriches the blood supply as it travels through our brain and all of the other parts of our body. So that's one of the benefits. Another benefit is it does, like we talked about, improve the immune function. So being in that state in the nervous system, in that calm, we experience relief, true relief from stress. And I know from my own experience, and I'm going to guess in your experience, that relief is something that we seek and we're searching for when we do feel stressed. And then, of course, it depends on the degree of the stress, how uncomfortable we are. And the calm part of the nervous system does play a critical role, like we just talked about, in the digestion. When we are in the fight or flight part of the nervous system, which is the sympathetic part of the nervous system, all of the energy goes to the extremities so that we can either flee or fight, or we can find a place to hide and freeze. And so digestion is not something that's important in that moment when we're in danger. And so that system is going to make sure it keeps you safe. That's its job. It doesn't really have any interest in how you're feeling. At the end of the day, it doesn't really want to know about how you're feeling. It wants to know, did I keep you safe? And that's its job. And so there are other systems in our body that when we chronically live in that fight or flight system, that don't get the health that the parasympathetic nervous system does provide. And then the other benefit is the new pathways in the brain. So our brains learn through repetition. I mean, we all can remember reciting the alphabet over and over, our multiplication or our addition, over and over and over again. And we still know it to this day because we built these neuronal networks through the repetition. So new neural pathways are strengthened until a new behavior becomes a new normal. Like we're talking about, the ones that are positively charged emotions that will make us feel calm and relaxed and motivated and clear and creative and inspired and all of those things that we can feel. And EFT is an efficient and dramatic and rapid technique used to self-regulate the nervous system to improve our health and our well-being. And as we're tapping, we actually are providing the repetition. So some things clear in, one tapping session, like like peeling a layer of an onion, and then tapping again and again helps us to peel more and more and more layers of the onion. And so there's the repetition within a session, and then the repetition from day to day of practicing the tapping and keeping ourselves in that rest and digest and heal part of the nervous system. So those are some of the benefits. Okay, Carolyn, thank you. If you would go to the next slide. All right, so we're just kind of looking clearly at this thing called uncertainty and how uncertainty moves us into, has the potential to move us into fear and doubt and worry. Our brains like to be able to navigate with certainty. Our brains like to use our environment and create a story to help us to navigate. And when we have uncertainty, we don't, we kind of don't really know what to do, which puts us automatically into fear, doubt, and worry, or it has the potential to. Okay, Carolyn, if you would go ahead and move to the next slide. Okay. So we are living in the time of a pandemic. So, and we've been here for what, I guess 8 or 9 months now. So let's just get the elephant out from under the rug. This is a time of uncertainty. This is a time that we're all hearing about or maybe experiencing greater degrees of uncertainty and fear, worry, doubt, stress. And with tapping, one of the key things that we do is we do get the elephant out from under the rug. Louise Hay, who I'm not sure if any of you know of her, but she created Hay House Publications, and she wrote a book of affirmations about healing our body because she had healed herself from cancer. She was a very remarkable woman. And when tapping was discussed with her, because her affirmations are all positive, she does not discuss the negative. She always moves to affirmations in the positive. So when tapping was discussed with her, the person that was interviewing her asked, well, what do you think about tapping and us, focusing on the negative first? And she said, well, you have to lift the rug and find the dust and sweep it out before you've really cleaned the house or the room. So that's what we do with the EFT. And then Carolyn, if you would go ahead to the next slide. Yeah, so what I'd love to do here is tap together and shift allow you to experience shifting into a relaxed and resilient state of being. And if you are experiencing any level of stress or distress, then, getting to experience some relief. So, Carolyn, at this point, what would be helpful is for me to, I think you and I, Carolyn, had discussed that with the tapping, you would be the echo. Is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're just going to tap on the emotions of fear, worry, doubt, uncertainty, or we might call it stress, we might call it anxiety, we might call it tension. Whatever the word is for you as an individual personally, you will just be thinking of that word, even if it's not the word that I use. When I work with somebody one-on-one, then it's very individualized and very personal. But when we work together as a group, I try to just kind of make it a broad emotional term, and then have each of you personalize it and bring your own name to that emotion. So what we do when we do the tapping is, first, what I'd love for each of you to do is, if you're comfortable, I want you to go ahead and close your eyes. And I want you to tune in to what emotion might be causing you some distress or some stress, just kind of, on an ongoing basis. Not, it doesn't have to be in this particular moment. Just tune into that. See what it is, what name you would give it, where you're feeling it in your body, to what degree you're feeling it emotionally or physically in your body. And then what I'd like for you to do is we're going to take 2 nice breaths, okay? And if possible, what I'd like for you to do when we're breathing is to breathe in through your nose, and we're going to hold it for a second or 2. And then if it's possible, I'd like for you to breathe out through your nose as well. If it's not possible, go ahead and just blow out through your mouth and do whatever's most comfortable. Okay? So we're going to start now. We're going to take a deep breath in and hold, and then exhale. And then we're going to take another deep breath in. And hold. And exhale. And it's also really helpful before we tap, if you will note whether you felt like your breath was coming from your chest, if your shoulders were rising, if it felt like a shallow breath, or if it felt like it was a nice deep belly breath. Just to make a note of that, how you're doing right now. And then you'll take another note of that when we're finished with the tapping. Okay? So we're going to do just a really short tapping where I'd like to go through kind of what the process is. I am going to kind of truncate something that I typically do in the middle because I haven't explained it. And I think for ease as a group, we'll just leave that part out, okay? All right, so what's best when you're doing the tapping is that you speak out loud and you say what I've said. And Carolyn's going to be that echo, but if each of you, while you're muted, would just speak out loud if you're comfortable doing that. And we're going to start with this point at the side of the hand. And I will just show you the points as we go and also just give them the name that they have. So we're starting with side of hand. Even though there has been such an enormous amount of uncertainty.
So I repeat that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though there has been such an enormous amount of uncertainty
In my life,
in my life,
in the world,
in the world,
and it has caused me stress.
and it has caused me stress.
I'm open to the possibility
I'm open to the possibility
that I am able to release this stress.
that I'm able to release this stress.
And I know that I'm doing the very best that I can here and now.
And I know that I'm doing the very best that I can here and now.
Even though this uncertainty
Even though this uncertainty
has caused me a lot of worry,
has caused me a lot of worry,
has caused me to feel frightened,
has caused me to feel frightened,
I'm open to the possibility
I'm open to the possibility
that I can release this fear, this worry.
that I can release this fear, this worry,
Here and now.
here and now.
Even though this uncertainty
Even though this uncertainty
has disrupted my life.
has disrupted my life.
And I don't know when that's going to change.
I don't know when that's going to change.
I don't know when things are going to go back to normal.
I don't know when things are going to go back to normal.
I don't know if things are going to go back to what I call normal.
I don't know if things are going to go back to what I call normal.
All of this uncertainty,
All of this uncertainty,
fear,
here,
worry,
worry,
and fear.
and fear.
And I'm open to the possibility that I can release these feelings.
And I'm open to the possibility that I can release these feelings.
Now we're going to go to the top of the head. It's right in the middle, like right where the baby's soft spot is on the top of the head. All right. And now we just repeat the emotions, staying tuned in. This fear.
Fear.
We're going to go to the eyebrow point, which is at the beginning of the eyebrow closest to the nose. All of this uncertainty.
All of this uncertainty.
And then we're going to go to the side of the eye, right in the crease here. Uncertainty.
Uncertainty.
All of this fear.
All of this fear.
Under the eye, right on the bone under the eye. Worry.
Worry.
Doubt.
Doubt.
I don't know what's going to happen.
I don't know what's going to happen.
under nose, right under the nose. I don't know when this is even going to end.
I don't even know when this is going to end.
Chin, this pandemic.
This pandemic.
And all of the uncertainty.
And all of the uncertainty.
And this point's called the collarbone point. You just go under the collarbone, just to one side. Uncertainty.
Uncertainty.
And we're going to add a point in here. This is where the thymus gland is. We're going to go to the middle of the chest. Uncertainty.
Uncertainty.
Fear.
Fear.
Worry.
Worry.
Sometimes I don't feel safe.
Sometimes I don't feel safe.
Okay, under the arm on the side. Unsafe.
Unsafe.
Worry.
Worry.
Pandemic.
Pandemic.
Uncertainty.
Uncertainty.
Okay, we're going to go back to the side of the hand. Even though there is all of this uncertainty.
Even though there's all of this uncertainty.
And it's created a lot of tension for me.
And it's created a lot of tension for me.
Stress.
Stress.
I choose to release this stress now.
To release this stress now.
Top of the head. And I release all of my emotional attachment to this stress.
And I release all of my emotional attachment to this stress.
Okay, the eyebrow point. And I remove all of the blocks that this stress has caused.
And I remove all of the blocks that this stress has caused.
Side of the eye. So that I can restore.
So that I can restore.
Calm.
Calm.
Restoring stability.
Restoring stability.
Under nose. Restoring security.
Restoring security.
Chin. Restoring safety.
Restoring safety.
I choose to feel relaxed.
I choose to feel relaxed.
Collarbone. I choose to allow myself to relax.
I choose to allow myself to relax.
Middle of the chest. I choose to give myself permission to relax.
I choose to give myself permission to relax.
I choose this present moment.
I choose this present moment
Where I am safe.
where I am safe.
And I give myself permission to relax.
And I give myself permission to relax.
Restore.
Restore.
Calm.
Calm.
All right. So if you would, go ahead and just rest your hands in your lap. And I want you to go ahead and close your eyes again. And tune back into the name of the emotion that you called distress. And I want you to just take a nice deep breath in through the nose and hold, and then exhale. And then rate what number that distress is now when you think about it. And see if it's shifted, see if it's changed, see if it's gone down any in these few moments. And thank you all for joining me in that tapping session. That was wonderful. So I guess, Carolyn, we can open it to Q&A now. Can't hear you.
I think I have to unmute myself. Sorry, I got so relaxed I forgot what I was doing. Craig Wilt said, persons who have experienced the traumatic death of a loved one have shared with me their observation that what the mind forgets, the body remembers. That seems especially true when the body reacts unexpectedly on or around the 1-year observance of a traumatic or other stressful event. In addition, Choice Theory by William Glazer is an excellent book on this topic from Tom Cross. So I just want to put those out there. As you were talking, people were commenting on those things. So
I have a question.
Hi.
Hi. I wondered if it made any difference if you switch hands throughout the tapping technique. I find that more comfortable.
That is a great question, and thank you for bringing that up, because it's an important piece of information that I didn't share, is that the meridians run along both sides of our body. And so it doesn't matter which side you're on. When we're in the center, then of course, we just have the center.
Mm-hmm.
So you can switch hands. If one hand's getting tired, you can switch to the other. Some people tap using both hands. And really what I tell people that I'm tapping with is just do whatever's comfortable for you. You don't have to mimic what I'm doing, except for the point itself, but you can use whatever hand or both hands. So great question. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Or even if anybody wants to share their experience with the tapping?
Go ahead.
a question from Sarah. How often do you do this?
Another great question. So when you've been experiencing something and it's chronic, I would recommend that you seek working with somebody that is trained so that they can help to reach the subconscious and release what's going on. If you're just tapping on things like everyday things, like it might be that this is a pandemic and you woke up and you're feeling anxious and you want to tap on that, I would tap every single day, because just the tapping itself helps us move into that rest and repair part of the nervous system. So you automatically can shift out of that fear into calm. And like we talked about with repetition, so each day you're building, and the neuroscience says that's how we rewire the mind. And we rewire a new way to behave. And so then that way becomes us. We wake up calm instead of worried over time. Does that answer the question, Sarah?
So, observation for you. I discovered tapping through Nick Ortner,
Yes.
and then Brad Yates.
Yes.
And Brad Yates has got a wonderful plethora of YouTube videos.
Yes.
On every subject you can possibly imagine. Mm-hmm. And now Nick Ortner has got an app, the Tapping Solution app for tapping. So for everyday things, those are really wonderful. But yes. I've been looking for somebody to work with to do specific things. So I'm glad to meet you, Stephanie.
Well, it's nice to meet you as well. And thank you for bringing up those resources. And what I can do, maybe share with you, Carolyn, some resources that you could send to anybody that was interested. So if you're interested, you could email Carolyn, but like it's Jean, not Jeannie, Jean?
It's Jeannie Ann.
Jeannie Ann, okay.
Yeah.
So like Jeannie Ann said, two really big names are the Ortners, which is called the Tapping Solution. And they have an app, and you can search that app for all, like every emotion you can possibly think of, and then follow along and do a tap along is what they call it, through the tapping solution. And so those are, the nice follow alongs. And I do recommend that you would do a follow along rather than just sit and try and recreate something you just were exposed to once. And then the other person that Jeannie Ann mentioned is Brad Yates. And like she said, he has an enormous collection of YouTube videos on tapping, and he is wonderful. So you could also just, search for him in YouTube. And you could also just search, emotional freedom technique and see who you like and who you resonate with. It does have YouTubes out, because you'll find, an enormous selection of them. So thank you, Jeannie Ann.
That's great. Another question in the chat. So first of all, let me say I put my email. It's carolyn@thecentercville.org, or you can just call the center and say, give me Carolyn's phone, thing, and I'll send whatever Stephanie sends my way to you. And then someone said, is tapping effective in helping people overcome behavioral and or chemical addiction?
Another great question. Yes. Addiction is something that is a habit. And of course, it's, a much more severe habit than some, but it is definitely something that can be interrupted. And again, the neuronal networks that link that person to addiction can be rewired into a person that does not have addiction. It's something that takes some time. But in the, when you're looking at somebody who's had decades of addiction, it's a fraction of that amount of time, or a small amount of time that it takes, but it does take a little bit of time.
And I imagine it varies from person to person and addiction to addiction, but part of a person's healing repertoire, might be AA, might be something else, but that tapping could also be a component of that, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, and also addiction is often seen as a manifestation of, an emotional component that is driving the addiction. That the addiction isn't the problem, it's the thing that is driving the addiction is the problem. And so that's what the tapping would get to. But yes, obviously, all of the other wonderful things that of for addiction would benefit from being in place as well.
I have a question about repeating those negative feelings. And I've always been told, don't constantly repeat, I'm fearful, I'm anxious. So, and you did it on all parts. So, and then you went back, but it seemed a shorter time to go back. Do you go through the negative quickly so you get to the positive?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Susan. So like I was explaining about Louise Hay and her affirmations, when you're just trying to use the tool of affirmation, sometimes that alone doesn't work. Like Bessel talked about, that this is encoded in our body. And so I wouldn't sit around and just say those negative statements without tapping, because that will just activate the emotion to be greater and multiplied in its, magnitude, right? But the tapping is, like I said, it's very strange. It's kind of like a Morse code that's communicating to the autonomic nervous system. And so this is helping it leave the viscera of the body. And what happens when people finish tapping is they'll say, maybe they started at an 8, 9, or 10, and then they say, well, it's a 2 or a 3, but it's out here now. It's no longer visceral. So the intention is it is a very clear intention to state it negatively so that it can be released. Emotions are energy emotion, and they live within a field of energy. And that's why Roger Callahan named it thought field therapy. So we want to give attention to move into that field so we can collapse it, dissolve it, release it. And then it's a little different if we were tapping, well, it's very different than if we were tapping one-on-one. The amount of time I would stay negative and positive would be pretty equal, and very individualized
Right.
for you, specifically.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your question. It was great.
I just don't want to share, the power was going out in my house off and on. I think some people had trouble getting on and off. People were being admitted as you were asking me to tap. And I thought, well, it's a great time to try and see if this works, because I'm having to admit people while I'm saying things. And actually I had a 4 and it went down to a 2. So I thought that was pretty interesting, given the fact that there was a lot of situational stress,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
just for myself, but other people. So just kind of funny and interesting.
yeah, and thank you for sharing that. I mean, I have a personal share as well. I was really nervous to do the presentation. I'm not used to doing a presentation in this way, and with this many people in this way on Zoom, and all transparency, it's the first time I put together a PowerPoint, and I couldn't get it to work on my laptop, and so I felt my stress going up. So as we were beginning, you couldn't see my hand, but I was just tapping on the side of my hand and I was breathing. So the side of the hand point it's one of the most powerful points for correction of these, what we would call reversals, the energy getting stuck in the body. So you can do that anywhere at any time. And the breath with that is it really sends that information to the amygdala. We're safe. You can calm. There is no, there's no saber-toothed tiger. You can move back into calm, and you can regulate what felt dysregulated pretty quickly.
Nice.
Situational like that.
I know we're over a little bit, but if anybody is willing to stick around for a few minutes, there's some more comments in the share. Kristen said, it seems like the same concept of EMDR, where trauma is repeated while the EMDR therapy takes place to help the memories properly store and be put to bed.
It's very similar. It would fall in the same field of psychology as EMDR, but there are definite differences, and there's been some clear research as far as the tapping being a little bit more effective than the EMDR. Not, that's not me stating, that EMDR is not an effective tool. It's a very, it's a powerfully effective tool. This was just me stating a research that was done with both of those in the research, and some other modalities as well. And there is actually some eye movement that is part of the tapping that I didn't include because we didn't discuss it, and I just think it would have been too difficult to bring in. But
And that's part, but for folks that don't know what EMDR is, that's part of the eye movement.
It's a desensitization technique so that the brain can release the trauma or the upset or the distress.
I think it's wonderful we have so many different modalities coming forward, and to find the 1 or 2 or 5 or 12 that work for you. It's a good time to be alive.
Yeah, and I think that's such a wonderful point, Carolyn, because I'm a firm advocate of finding what resonates with you, for you, that there is not, tapping is absolutely not the only thing that can help us to do the things I've described at all. It's my favorite, but that doesn't mean that it's, the only or anything like that. There are so many techniques and tools that, we can use to help ourselves self-regulate.
I concur. Anyone else? Any more questions or comments? I so appreciate everybody sticking with us all through all the power outages and things that occurred.
Yeah, thank you all so very much for being here. It was my pleasure to have this opportunity. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to share emotional freedom technique with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you to the center also for making this available, because it's really wonderful that it's so accessible. And so thank you for making this possible for us to get together.
Well, you're most welcome. I have to thank Stephanie's mother, who's a member, for calling. And we really, a lot of our programming comes from members saying, hey, it'd be really cool. I know this person, that, etc. So we appreciate you sharing with us so that we can share in turn with you all. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
All right. So if anyone is interested, just send me an email. You may have done that already. And then when Stephanie has the app from Nick Ortner, et cetera, all that resources together, I'll ship them out to you. Wouldn't be a couple of days, probably.
Great. Wonderful. Thanks again. Thank you all so much. And thank you, Carol.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Carol.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Stay warm today.